Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's Planning Committee of the 14th of October. My name is Councillor Manja Burrell and I'm the chairman of this committee. Just got a few things to read out and then I'll get everyone to introduce themselves. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed by HDC. Members and public speakers must use the desk microphones, otherwise the recording will not work. Only 2 microphones, in addition to the chairman's, can be on at the same time. Mobile phones, members and the public should switch off their phones, please. Fire exits. The meeting point is at the top end of Mill Hill Car Park and the exits are there and there. Leaving during the meeting. People may come and go normally during the meeting. Now, the council is aware that planning applications may be controversial and emotive for those affected by the decisions made by this committee. However, everyone present is reminded that the council will not tolerate abusive or aggressive behaviour towards staff or other visitors attending this meeting, and anyone behaving inappropriately will be required to leave the meeting and the building. So we'll just have a few introductions. We'll start with Councillor Worrell. Would you like to start, Councillor Worrell? Thank you.
Josh Worrell, Broughton South and Lear.
Councillor Peter James for Little Bowden Ward, Market Harborough.
Simon Wellbands, Hippers Ward.
Mark Graves, Broughton South and Lear.
Good evening, Alex Strickland, Legal Services. Thank you.
Sarah Hamilton, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening, David Atkinson, Director of Planning.
Hello, Adrian Eastwood, Head of Service Development Management.
Mark Patterson, Strategic Growth Manager.
Bruce Meadow-Smith, Strategic Growth Officer.
David Gale, Lutterworth East.
Peter Elliott, Thurmby and Houghton Ward.
Councillor Moder, Bilston and Tilton wards.
Neil Bannister from the Dunton Ward.
Rosita Page, Ullerthorpe Ward and County Councillor for the Lutterworth Division, replacing Councillor Scott tonight.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll turn to the agenda now. And the first item is apologies for absence, and as Councillor Page has just said, she is substituting tonight for Councillor Scott. Item 2 is declarations of members' interests. Has anyone got any declaration to make tonight? Oh, Councillor Gare.
I'm Town Councillor for Lutterworth West, which is the it's Orchard Ward.
Thank you. Right, item 3, the Planning Committee minutes of the 15th of July. Has everybody read them? And can you agree that they're a true and accurate record? Councillor Bannister?
I move that we accept those minutes, please, Chair.
Right, I've got a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gare. All in favour of the minutes? All right, thank you. Those are a true and accurate record. Right, item 4, referral up to council by the Planning Committee to consider any referrals under Part 3, Section B 1.4 of the Council's Constitution. There are none. And now we turn to the applications for tonight. The first application is 25/002955/OUP, land to the south of Lawton Road, Lebanon. And the presenting officer is Ruth Meadows-Smith. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. The application is as described and is made in outline form with only access to be considered in detail at this point. The description does not specify a number of dwellings, although the supporting information included by the applicant refers to 90 dwellings. So officers and highways officers, etc., have considered the application on this basis.
Thank you for the
Slide.
plans to come on. If you want to wait for a moment. They'll here soon. Okay, carry on, Ruth. Thank you.
So this is a first slide from Google aerial photographs from 2025 showing the settlement of Lubbenham, and the application site is over here to the west of the village. You can see the River Welland running through the village here, and the former disused railway line there to the south of the village. The main road through the village runs here, and Foxton Road runs to the north, with Lawton Road coming off it to the west just here. This is our in-house mapping system called Uniform, and this shows some constraints on the site. The conservation area is here in pale yellow. The rights of way are dashed red. And here's the application site drawn with a red line around its boundary here to the west. It's probably not that easy to see on this plan, but listed buildings are shaded quite a bright yellow. The nearest listed structure is a milepost, which is just near the bus stop, about here, I think, in Lubbenham. This slide shows the applicant's site location plan and sort of framework master plan or indicative layout plan. You can see that the location plan shows an existing access here and a proposed access there in red. It shows a stream running down the western and southern boundaries of the site. This flows into the River Welland. Here is a farm called Pine Tree Farm, which is accessed currently through the top corner of the site. And here are existing dwellings in Lubbenham, including those off Paget Road. And this is a fairly recent development at Lawton Court off Lawton Road. On the proposed plan, which is indicative, these areas here, pinkish colour, are areas of proposed housing development. There's an attenuation or drainage pond shown down here, a potential village green shown towards the middle of the site, a community shop or facility shown up near the entrance, and a children's play area shown down here. It's just worth noting, you might have picked it up anyway on the aerial photograph, that down here and here, there's actually 3 dwellings that have been built in recent years. So although it's shown as empty, there are 3 dwellings on that land just there. So turning now to some photographs around the site. So this is taken just to the west of the site. Those of you that were at the site visit yesterday seems a long time ago, we stood here in this gateway and looked across. So this is actually land which is adjacent to the east side of the site, and it is committed within Lubbenham Neighbourhood Plan for housing development. This hedgerow here forms the north boundary of the site. So the north boundary of the site is not next to the road. I don't know if I can go up. Yeah, you can see here, there's the north boundary of the site. This is the commitment in the neighbourhood plan, and there's the hedgerow. You can also see this line of trees here, which is part of the railway line, and the land drops down just there to the stream. This is the existing site access looking southeast. You can see trees here within the parkland of Thorpe Lubbenham Hall, and the roof of an agricultural style building there, and trees along the railway line. So this is standing in the existing access looking east along the north boundary of the site. This, you can just see that white gable there. That's a new-ish build on Paget Road in Lubbenham. So this is looking the other way. This is the north boundary of the site here, looking west. There's Pine Tree Farm there. You can see the ridge and furrow and the land sloping down to the stream. So this is roughly halfway down the eastern boundary of the site, looking up towards the access here. These distinctive trees, obviously Pine Tree Farm. These are some photos that are taken roughly where the proposed point of access is. That's looking east, and looking west along Lawton Road. And these are some slightly longer distance views as you approach the site from the west along Lawton Road. So as you come up to the brow of the hill, you can just see these houses here. That's the Lawton Court developments. And then as you go a little bit further down, you can see the houses there again, and you might just be able to see that white rendered gable that's just in there. The application received 11 letters of objection from 10 addresses and 4 letters of support from 2 addresses, and the parish also object. Since publication of the agenda, a further objection has been received, and this is available to members in the supplementary information with the appendix available in full on the website. The representation has been addressed within the report and the supplementary information. Members will also see on the supplementary information that the council's received further information from the applicant in respect of ecology. And we consulted County Council Ecology, and you will see their response within the supplementary information. They now have no objection, and because of this, the recommended 5th refusal reason is considered to fall away. Members are aware of the council's current lack of a 5-year supply of deliverable sites for housing and the subsequent requirement to apply paragraph 11D of the NPPF. Nonetheless, officers consider that the adverse impacts of granting planning permission significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits of the proposal and recommend that the proposal is refused as per the revised recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ruth. I've got 4 speakers on this application, and the first speaker is Diana Cook. If you'd like to come forward, Diana. All right, you've got 3 minutes, Diana. You know the procedure. You'll be given a 30-second warning. Start when you're ready, please. Is your microphone? Does it come on? On. Thank you.
The site that the officer referred to in the neighbourhood plan is a reserve site. It's not, there is another site besides that, but that one isn't the set site. It's a reserve site.
Right. Thank you.
Sorry, just wanted to clarify.
Carry on then.
Okay. This proposed major development is disproportionate to the size of our village settlement and fails to respect the character in the existing village and landscape and the ridge and furrow on the fields. It proposes an increase to our village population of at least 25% while creating an unsustainable remote settlement. Homes will be more than the recommended 800 metres walking distance from the centre of the village, where the nearest facilities, bus service, pub and shop, when opened, would be accessed. The school is even further, and history shows there will be an increasing reliance on the private motor vehicle to access the school because the plans do not provide convenient and high quality footpath and cycle links. With no safe footway, the access onto the road from the site within the national speed limit would pose a danger. The speed limit is not going to be reduced. There's a conflict with conditions on approval 230037 FUL for Pine Tree Farm. The new access encroaches on an area of land that is conditioned to be kept in perpetuity as an access to that dwelling and approved by that consent. That consent was dependent on the continued agricultural use of this site to make it viable. The officer has presented a comprehensive report, including the policies that this application contravenes, while taking account of a number of issues that remain unresolved, although some may have been resolved a little more now. I don't propose going into the many policies. We've sent you plenty of, at least Councillor Lovesey has sent you plenty of policies. We're not alone in objecting. Anglian Water stated to us last week that there is no capacity within the Luvenham subcatchment local network, and that Anglian Water, quoting their words, has objected to the planning application for this reason. In 23-24, Lebanon Pumping Station released over 7 weeks raw sewage. This was about 7% of the total discharge into entire Welland catchment. As residents, we know that at times effluent's taken away in tankers and others leakage into the River Welland occurs. Developers have not defined a sustainable point of connection to the public foul network either. The Archaeology Department asked for a programme of archaeological field investigation prior to determination. As far as I can see, this has not been undertaken, and without this, they object to the proposal and consider it would be difficult for the planning authority to assess the archaeological impact of the proposals. The Environment Agency states it's important that the proposal does not increase flooding off the site and that a sustainable surface water drainage strategy is in place. They say there are other matters which need correcting or addressing in the flood risk assessment. The proposal doesn't demonstrate that it provides adequate drainage and that it will not increase flooding or flood risk elsewhere. Lebanon does flood and it goes into people's houses. The lead local flood authority and the EA object for these reasons. No updated consultation response from the EA had been provided at the time I wrote this. We have an empty shop in the village. We note that a space has been safeguarded for a shop, not the building of a shop. Our empty shop has just been sold.
30 seconds.
We would hope that it's going to be occupied and be busy by the time this is built. I've said it before, Lebanon is a village that plans. We're currently well on the way to updating our neighbourhood plan. We'll be designating appropriate sites within it, and we have the 2 sites as yet in our local plan undeveloped. We believe your officer has given you solid reason to refuse. The future of our village and future neighbourhood plan lies in your hands.
Thank you very much, Diana. Has anyone got any questions for Diana Cook? No? Thank you very much. Our next speaker is County Councillor David Page. Councillor Page. You've got 3 minutes. Start when you like, and you'll be given a 30-second warning.
Thank you. Chair, members, for the record, I'm speaking as the County Council for Market Harborough West and Foxton, which includes Lebanon, which is a community already carrying an exceptional level of planned and consented development. And to be clear at the outset, this application is not plan-led. It conflicts directly with adopted spatial strategy for the district and fails key infrastructure tests. On scale and planning policy, Lebanon's planned growth allocation to 2040 is approximately 65 dwellings with a residual capacity of around 60. This application seeks 90, a 50% overshoot, equating to a 24% population increase in one step. For a selected rural village, this is entirely disproportionate. That alone is a binary failure of local plan policy GD2 and neighbourhood plan policy LNP03. It undermines the spatial strategy and the community's ability to absorb growth sustainably. And it is not a matter of discretion. The policy test is clear and the proposal fails it. On infrastructure, Anglian Water has now confirmed in writing, and I quote, "No, there is no capacity within the Lebanon sub-catchment local network, and they have formally objected to this development. The local foul drainage system is already under significant stress. Lebanon Pumping Station has recorded over 7 weeks of raw sewage in a single year, as Diana's already mentioned. Policy IN4 requires that capacity is proven at decision stage. It cannot lawfully be deferred to a condition because the developer cannot control Anglian Water's off-site upgrades. To approve without this evidence would expose the council to legal and environmental risk. On other matters, there is no published traffic modelling, no full SUDS or flood risk data I'm aware of, and no secured Section 106 package for education, healthcare or transport. This means that members are being asked to approve on assumption, not on evidence. And on the tilted balance, the lack of a 5-year land supply does not sweep away any of these policies. Inspectors and the courts have repeatedly upheld GD2 and IN4 in these circumstances. Members are required to start with the development plan and only depart where truly exceptional material considerations exist. There are none here. Chair, this application represents speculative overdevelopment without proven infrastructure in a village already
Page 30 seconds.
already carrying major allocations, including a 1,700 place prison. For these reasons, and in the interest of sound, lawful and sustainable planning, I strongly urge members to accept the officer's recommendation to refuse this application on the decisive policy grounds of GD2, LMPO3 and IN4, reinforced by unresolved issues on flooding, transport and section 106. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Are there any questions for Councillor Page? Yes, Councillor Graves.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bates. We've got late information, an officer comment about Anglian Water and their formal comments to us in April 2025 are considered by officers to represent their position. Anglian Water do not raise lack of capacity as a reason for objection. Second paragraph, Anglian Water do not object to the proposal because they have no record of developer. ... Could you please just once again just read out that sentence or two where you imply or state clearly that Anglian Water have said there is no capacity or something? Could you just remind me?
Yeah, look, I believe this comes from a late submission from the parish council, actually.
So is it not sourced from Anglian?
It is sourced, and the actual quote from them directly is, no, there is no capacity. I believe there was a question asked of them in correspondence.
Of Anglian.
And I believe this is where they say, no, there is no capacity within the Lubbenham sub-catchment local network.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so the email is actually on your website.
Okay, thank you. Questions? No? Thank you, Councillor Page. Our next speaker is Jessica Graham. If you'd like to come forward, please. Thank you. I'd like to put the microphone on. You've got 3 minutes and you'll be given a 30-second warning. Start when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Jessica Graham. I'm a planning consultant at Savills, representing the applicant, Barrett David Wilson, North Midlands. Barrett Redrow has been awarded 5-star status from the HBF for 16 consecutive years. They have a strong track record of working well with the council and delivering much needed and high quality homes across Harborough District. Since the submission of the application, Barrett has been working with planning officers and statutory consultees to respond to queries raised about the development during the determination period. Some of these responses have required months of chasing to obtain them, and the comments from the Conservation Officer were only received in September, so well after the statutory consultation period, and we have been given limited opportunity to respond. Moreover, some of the consultee responses have requested additional information, which Barrett and their technical team have been working on, and this was confirmed at a meeting with the Council's planning officers on the 2nd of September. None of these requests are insurmountable and include completing battered bird surveys, which were submitted to the council since the committee report was published. And as the officer said, the county ecologist is no longer objecting to the scheme. We are engaging with Anglian Water to obtain evidence on their local sewer capacity point, which we've obviously been discussing. We are completing a road safety order as requested by County Highways, and we are engaging with the EA, the Environment Agency, on an on-site flood risk management scheme. The flood risk management scheme is not required to make the site suitable from a flood risk and drainage perspective, but it's something Lubbenham Parish Council has confirmed to us they are keen to see delivered in order to improve flood risk further downstream within the wider catchment. Barrett has been working with the EA to confirm how this could be delivered as part of the proposed development. We appreciate that officers have in principle concerns with the scheme, but as the scheme is being made and outlined, there is no commitment at this stage to matters such as design, mix and type of dwellings. There is therefore scope to make amendments to address some of the officer concerns, and Barrett are happy to make commitments at outline stage through conditions and the Section 106 agreement if needed. The officer's report notes that the proposal would satisfactorily mitigate the impacts of the development on local infrastructure. Barrett are keen to provide a development which does not just provide much needed housing, but also wider community benefits. They have engaged with the Parish Council to see if additional benefits could be provided on and off-site, and will ensure that Section 106 financial contributions are directed to Lubbenham. To conclude, the Council has not allowed us sufficient time to provide responses to consultees, which conflicts with the NPPS requirement for councils to work proactively with applicants to secure sustainable development.
Jessica, you have 30 seconds left.
I am here to respectfully ask members to defer making a decision on this application until the applicant has issued the outstanding technical responses to consultees who have requested further information. If members are minded, you can choose to then refuse the application at a later stage, but your decision at that point will be based on the most up-to-date technical position and will save the council on appeal costs as the number of reasons of refusal will be limited. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Councillor Bannister?
A couple of questions. One, are you able to confirm that the maximum amount of residential dwellings you're looking at is 990? And secondly, you just made a comment about this committee perhaps considering a deferment of making a decision until all the technical responses that you're working on have been concluded. Rather than this committee consider deferment, have the applicants considered withdrawing until they have those technical responses, and then you can come back to the committee with a full and proper application?
So just going back on your first response on the 90 dwellings, yes, I can confirm that is the maximum. So we have applied for up to 90 dwellings, but that doesn't mean at the reserve matters stage, it could be less than that. So maximum would be 90 dwellings. And that is something that Barratt would be happy if it gives comfort to the council members that it wouldn't go over 90 dwellings. We'd be happy for that to be conditioned to specifically say no more than 90 dwellings. On your second point, sorry, just remind me, that was whether we would withdraw. At the moment, no, it is something that we have considered, but we've obviously reviewed the reasons of refusal which were presented in the committee report, and we consider there's obviously a case to come back on all those. As we've shown with the reason for my request for deferral is because we know there are matters which can be addressed. There are requests for further information, which we are working on. We are engaging with the LLFA. We are engaging with the EA, as we've done with the county ecologist, and the county ecologist now is no longer objecting to the scheme. We know there are things that we can address before we get to the appeal stage. We obviously fully acknowledge there will be some things likely that we will not be able to persuade planning officer or members on in relation to landscapes harms potentially, but giving us a bit of time to just address some of the reasons of refusal should mean we've got less that we have to debate and appeal.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Can you confirm that you would be able to achieve 40% affordable housing on this site, please?
Yes, I can confirm we would be committed to providing 40% affordable housing on this site.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Thank you very much. Our final speaker is Councillor Joe Asher, the ward member. As ward member, you've got 5 minutes. Want to start when you're ready? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I probably won't take 5 minutes because a lot of what I was going to say has already been said. It's good news for residents to see that the officers have recommended this application for refusal, and good news for the parish council. As you know, this is a speculative application. It's not on any plans, and this is not a good reason to put in an application. It's not a suitable site. All the concerns raised by the parish council seem to have been covered by the reasons to refuse, which really does show that this parish council has the knowledge of its area and its own plan, and they know which sites are correct for this village. The scheme is far too large for a village of this size, and it will cause significant harm. I really hope that the committee are minded to agree with the officers tonight and refuse this application. I also hope that the developer takes the advice of the planning officers on board and respects this decision. All developments should be plan-led, and especially something of this size. As I say, it's not a suitable site, and we've sat here many times before and heard applications saying that they will provide 40% affordable housing, and then down the line they've come back and said that they can't do this because it's not viable. Will we sit here again if we put this through and hear that again? It's also not a reason to put this through. As I say, it's a flood risk. It is not a suitable site. The plan is contrary to many of the policies, as you've seen in the document, so I'm not going to go on about that. We've heard from the applicant who said that they build high quality homes, and we're not disputing that. But we don't need this amount of homes in Lubenham. Lubenham is not down to have this amount of homes in its neighbourhood plan. It would absolutely swamp the village. It's not a sustainable site. And, you know, we've heard from the applicant saying that they're waiting for further technical responses. I actually think before us tonight, we've got enough evidence here from our planning officer who spent probably hours and hours of time working on this, and we should respect this decision and support that our planning officers that this should be refused. And I hope that you all are minded to do that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Asher. Has anyone got any questions for Councillor Asher? No? Okay, thank you. Would the planning officer like to come back on any of those points? Please.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just to draw members' attention to the comments on the supplementary list to do with IN4. There is within the Water Act, there is a right to connect for developers. They have a right to connect to the existing systems, and comments made to us directly have not raised the issue of capacity as it's set out here. As regarding giving a developer time to respond to the technical requests from consultees, there has been a period of time already, and that opportunities haven't been taken, or for whatever reason we haven't got the information in front of us. But as what's set out in the report, we don't feel that's a good enough reason to delay a decision where there is concerns in principle about the development. I think that's all.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. It's open to the committee. Has anyone got anything to say? Who's going to start us off? Councillor Elliott. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, well, there's a lot to be sorted out, in my opinion, here. There's a lot to be resolved. I mean, Anglican Water have had floods of sewage, etc. So it's not a case of just connecting into it. If it can't be done, it can't be done. There's also environmental agencies to be resolved, archaeology, there's flooding. There's just so much that's not been resolved. So, well, I'll listen to what everybody else has got to say, but I don't think I can go forward with it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Graves?
Just to make an early point, if I may come back later with other points, but I think the applicant needs to think carefully about some of these issues that are outstanding. For me, one of the significant issues that jumps out of this report is the lack of connectivity, particularly by footpath and cycleway connections. Now, to some extent, having existing householders having a green space gap to a new development could be regarded as a positive thing. It's a separation, however small or modest it might be, but then the blight is in the next door field. But any development, if the applicant is selecting a site which is somewhat separate, it must be integrated somehow. You can't have 90 people, families, etc., walking down a single lane road without traffic markings in the middle. You just can't do it. So there's got to be some sort of connectivity. So whilst I have some sympathy, and you know, we as a committee are going to have a hard job in the next year or two, passing applications that are probably profoundly unpopular and have some similarities to this, there's got to be connectivity. They've got to be sustainable. I am concerned at the size. It does seem particularly large. I think a smaller development would possibly gain more weight. I note that Anglian Water have made some sort of condition recommendations. It sounds like they've got some ideas or proposals, but certainly if their conditions don't address foul water dispersal into nice small streams or even small rivers, that is a major issue for local people. But I just wanted to raise some of those points that I've pulled out of the report, and I listened to what other committee members say.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Councillor Bannister, you were on the site visit yesterday, weren't you?
I was, and I greatly appreciated the opportunity to have a look at the site. And perhaps the first thing that struck me was how very quickly one left the built area of the village into the rural landscape. And Councillor Graves just mentioned the lack of connectivity, and I felt that when I was on the site. And I've listened very carefully to what the speakers have said and what the report also indicates about what appears to be quite a disproportionate nature of residential dwellings being placed on that site. The report talks about Lubenham in the past having the largest development of about 28 dwellings, and this envisages up to 90. And not only a very large development for this small and lovely village, I want to say, but 90 homes in an area that's not connected to the village is something that really did strike me both yesterday and, of course, listening to the speakers today. So at the moment, I'm not fully persuaded, in particular with regard to the fact that it still remains outstanding a number of technical responses. And I hear what the planning officer have said about there have been these discussions, and there's no need to further delay a decision from the planning committee on this, and I agree with that observation. I'll listen to what other committee members have to say before I make any proposal on the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wellbund.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I agree with Councillor Graves. I think this committee is going to have a very hard time over the next few years passing some applications that we really don't want to have to pass, but we are where we are. But the policies are still in place, and this case is absolutely clear to me, and the officer's done a great job on the report, and thank you for that. And with that in mind, will propose refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Have I got a seconder for refusal of this application? Councillor Elliott, you're going to propose refusal? So I've got a proposer and a seconder to refuse this application. Has anyone got anything else to say about it? Okay, well, we'll go to the vote then. Sarah, would you like to conduct the vote, please?
So for each councillor, could you say whether you're for, you're against, or you abstain in relation to the application? Councillor Bannister?
Well, I'm for the proposal to accept the officer's recommendation for reject.
Yeah, sorry.
For refusal, against refusal, or
that's right.
abstain.
Yes, right. Yes, to make it clear.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Have I made myself clear?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bannister. Councillor Burrell?
For refusing.
For refusing, yes. Councillor Elliott?
Refuse.
Councillor Gare?
Refuse.
Councillor Graves?
For the refusal.
Councillor James? Councillor Moder? Councillor Wellband?
For refusal.
Councillor Worrell? And Councillor Mrs Page? So that is unanimously for the refusal.
Okay, so that, thank you, everybody. That application has been refused unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Our next application is 25/00557/FUL. land at Moor Barnes Lane, 80 Farms Limited. And it's going to be presented by Mark Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for the change of use of two buildings on Moor Barnes Lane from agricultural use to B2 and B8 uses, so general industrial and storage uses. The application is retrospective in nature, but does include some additional works in terms of highway improvements, which are set out in the report. So if we go through the slides quickly, this is the application site. So it's located to the south of Lutterworth, south indeed of the Lutterworth bypass. So it's beyond the southern bypass. You can see the two buildings here in the yellowy brown colour of the two buildings that are subject to the application, with access from Moor Barnes Lane in this location here. And there is a third building next door to the site under the same ownership, but it doesn't form part of this application. So in terms of the aerial photo, you can see just to the north of the photo is the Moor Barnes Lane travelling showman site, which is immediately south of the southern bypass, and then you have the golf course in this area here. This site in this mouse is going. This site here was before members last year, I think it was, for some holiday lodgers in association with an existing equestrian facility on the site. And the two buildings that are subject to the application this evening are these two just here. So this is the view of the site from Moor Barnes Lane itself. So you can just through the hedge, you can just see the buildings in this location here. And to the next photo, and this is the view from Moor Barnes Lane, looking into the access point. So you can see the area before you get to the driveway for HGVs to pull into the site. Then you've got the buildings in this location here. So this is one of the buildings that's subject to the application. The second building is beyond that. The building you can see to the left here is the one which I mentioned earlier, which is outside of the application site. And this is a slightly closer view of that same view. So you can see the area to the front of the access point, and then the building here, which is subject of this evening's application. So this is the building which is on the, so it's effectively the one which sits first as you come into the site. So if we go back to the site plan, that would be this building here. And then you've got the second building here looking back up towards the site, and the earlier building we saw a photo of just here. In terms of the highway improvements, majority of the improvements are along Moor Barnes Lane itself. So you can see the access point in this location here. The applicants are proposing a passing bay here. Amendments to this existing access point to again provide a second passing bay just here. And if we move slightly further along, you can see there's creation of a smaller passing bay by the bridge here, and then also widening of the carriageway on the Lutterworth side of the bridge there. So the highway would be widened sufficiently to allow HGVs to pass. There are further improvements to Woodmarket, which I unfortunately don't have a slide for this evening. They are one of the approved plans within the recommended conditions list, which again provide for a further passing bay on Woodmarket as well. There is a speaker on the application, Chair, so I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Mark. We have one speaker, Mr. Lance Wiggins. You have 3 minutes. You know the drill. Start when you're ready, and you'll be given a 30-second warning.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application for the change of use of two former agricultural buildings at Moor Barnes Lane. In preparing this application, my clients and their consultants have been mindful of the concerns that members and local residents have about the operation of the junction of Moor Barnes Lane and Woodmarket. The submitted transport statement confirms the modest number of vehicle movements that the proposals generate and the extensive highway mitigation that's proposed. As you've heard, this mitigation includes 5 additional passing bays on Moor Barnes Lane and alterations to the existing access to the site. This proposal would not exacerbate the congestion at the Moor Barnes Lane Woodmarket junction because the applicants would ensure that additional traffic generated by the proposals would access the site outside of the morning and afternoon periods, where parents, of course, are dropping off and picking up children. And obviously, draft condition 12 refers to this restriction. The Town Council raised concerns about the use of the site by large vehicles. The submitted transport assessment records that 19 commercial vehicle movements would take place per day. That's less than 1 hour. And that only 4 of those movements would be heavy goods vehicles. As your officer's report confirms, the Highway Authority are supportive of the scheme, subject to conditions, stating that the impacts of the development would not be unacceptable, and that when considered cumulatively with other developments, the impacts on the road network would not be severe. And as you know, of course, severe is the test for any refusal of applications on highway safety grounds. Your officer's report goes on to detail the highway's issues, but it's clear that there are no highway safety grounds to resist the continued use of the site for B2 and B8 uses proposed. The application site has been in use by Crouch Recovery and by RMI Midlands for over 2 years now without incident. And this is supported by the submitted accident data, which doesn't record any reported collisions over the last 5 years on Moor Barnes Lane or at the Woodmarket Stony Hollow junctions. I share your officer's view that the application accords with the development plan and the conclusion that it represents an acceptable use in the countryside that would not have a significant impact on the landscape or on highway safety. The continued use of the site would bring additional economic benefits in terms of direct and indirect employment.
Mr. Wiggins, 30
in the local
seconds,
economy.
please.
Thank you. In my opinion, there are no material planning considerations indicating that the proposal should not be approved. And that being the case, I'd urge members of the committee to support the officer's recommendation and approve the application.
Thank you, Mr. Wiggins. Has anyone got any questions? Councillor Page?
Good evening and nice to see you again. Now, by your own admission, Crouch has been operating for over 2 years without planning permission, and therefore I am really concerned that the reassurances that there are only a certain amount of vehicles will be going to that site and that there are hours between 7 and 9:30 and 15:30 and 17 for safety will be adhered to. So how can you assure me and my residents that the number of vehicles that is specified will be adhered to and that those hours of operations will be adhered to? And how will that be monitored? Because it's a real safety concern to residents. Thank you.
Of course. Clearly, because Crouch Recovery and the other company have been operating from the site for that period, it means we've been able to actually count the number of vehicle movements that they do generate. So this is not just a suggestion or a postulation on the number of vehicles that could move, it's based on their records. So in terms of the numbers of vehicles, I can be confident on those because records show that those are the number of vehicles. In terms of the times, I mean, clearly we are looking at during school term times, and the two companies would restrict their vehicles. They again would keep records of the vehicle times in and out. Crouch Recovery, which I think is probably the one which people would be most concerned with, they have a number of depots across this part of the world, across sort of 3 or 4 counties. So they're able to adjust where they send vehicles to be recovered.
You, Councillor Gare, your microphone's not come on. That's it.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. You're proposing to make improvements to the road at Woodmarket at the point where Baker Street meets Woodmarket and Hill Drive comes in from the other side. That is within the conservation area. At the moment, it's too narrow for 2 cars to pass, and indeed a bike and a car would have difficulty. It's a blind junction coming out from Hill Drive. I cannot see any way you could improve that junction. There's also an 11% slope coming up the hill towards it, which is going to generate more pollution with these heavier vehicles coming up that slope. So I've only had the opportunity to see the map this evening because it wasn't on the plan, but I cannot see any way in which you could improve that narrow pavement, narrow road, conservation area to suit these lorries coming in that way.
Chair, I'm not a highway expert by any means. Obviously, detailed reports and plans of the proposed improvements have been submitted as part of the transport assessment, and they have been considered and approved by the officers at Leicestershire County Council. I can really say no more than that. If there are practical difficulties with implementing the scheme, then obviously my clients will do their best to implement them. But as far as I'm aware, they work.
Okay, and the bridge on Moorbarns Lane, that is too narrow for 2 cars to pass, really. And more importantly, cars cannot see over the bridge as they approach it. And you're just proposing, I mean, I'm a regular user of these roads, and the heavy lorries are a bit of a nightmare at that point.
If I can draw your attention to the number of vehicles generated by the scheme, which is in para 3.2 of your committee report, you can see there we're talking sort of 40-50 vehicle movements per day. So the number of vehicle movements generated by this proposal is not significant in my view, and that's a view which is shared by the Highway Authority. I accept that there are concerns and pinch points. We're clearly not proposing to widen the road over the bridge. That wouldn't be practical, but there are a number of passing bays put forward such that if vehicles do meet each other, they can pull over and use those bays to pass.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? Yeah, okay. Okay, Councillor Graves.
I think you referenced Hill Drive. I think, did you mention that, or was that?
I didn't, Chair, no.
Oh, right, no, that I'm not gonna, I'll withdraw the question then because I wasn't sure about the relevance of it, but it's not a question for Mr. Wiggins.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Wiggins. I'll open it up to the committee. Who wants to start? Councillor Gare?
Thank you, Chair. Lutterworth is right next to the largest logistics site in Europe. And the comments in here, for example, about importance to the rural economy, we have virtually 0 unemployment in the Lutterworth area. So anybody working here, or a large percentage of them, will have to come in from outside Lutterworth, generating traffic. In that time of the development of Magna Park, there have been no mitigating structures put in place paid for by public money. What is unique about this proposed development, and which Magna Park has avoided, it will draw larger vehicles into the town itself. The one thing that can be said about Magna Park, their heavy goods vehicles rarely, unless lost, don't enter the town. So you're drawing in vehicles into here coming along Woodmarket, which I cannot see any way of that being improved to take heavy vehicles. You're drawing them in along Woodway Lane, which it narrows to 1 lane outside the school. Now, the parking outside the school is there all day because the staff park there, and there is only room for 1 vehicle to get through. This is a totally inappropriate development. If it's going to go anywhere, it should be linked into the transport systems associated with Magna Park. I'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Councillor Page.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for the report. As a district councillor, I haven't been involved but as a county councillor, I get, and I can't do anything very much about it, but I do get constantly approached by residents, because even as the matter stands now, there is an over-intensification of the area surrounding, because there are speed humps, and when heavy lorries go over those speed humps on Wood Market, it shakes the walls at all hours of residence. I know, not a planning consideration. But then we're talking the corner where the schools are. It's very, very difficult to negotiate, and any intensification is extremely dangerous. As Councillor Gare just said, this application draws B8 into the area. And we all know once a B8 application is given, the applicant says it's for Crouch. But we know an application is not permitted for the named applicant, it is for the site. And if Crouch will move out of there, we can open the site for anything, because B8 is the highest industrial that can be given. Now, when you're looking at Moorebarns, even with the proposals, it is very difficult for 2 vehicles to pass. The road is a 60-mile-an-hour road that is highly used. We have not only got developments of residents, and I see the pavement has now been omitted, so how are they going to go up there? But the other thing it has got a use of showman's equipment. So showmen go up there with huge lorries with a lot of equipment, which is very difficult to maneuver. Then you've got the daily traffic to the tip. Now, we also have got horse lorries and horse trailers going down there to the equestrian side. So there is an awful lot of over-intensification, and once a B8 permission is granted, that will open the floodgates. Now, I believe this is an inappropriate application, and it says in the report it is farm diversification. Well, to me, it's not. This is not supporting the local economy, it's just storage of vehicles. And it is not, as set out in our policy BE1, used to promote the local economy. Our policy states that development in the countryside will be strictly controlled by GD3, and it promotes sustainable development through policy SSI. No, SSI. Now, I don't think this application adheres to those policies. It's in the open countryside, it's open the area up to further development, it's not sustainable, and I just believe it's not appropriate. I think, well, there are lots of other points, but I just feel this is not appropriate. And I personally, I want to hear what other members have got to say, but personally, I can't support this recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Graves.
Yes, thank you. I do know this road. I know it well enough through having gone to the tip quite a few times. It is a bit like running the gauntlet, as Councillor Page has said. There are places where it just doesn't feel as if, or you can have 2 vehicles next to each other. However, I have experienced that, but somehow you managed to sort of get past. What is attractive to me about this is the gain of highway improvements. So if those highway improvements were done and achieved and they're all delivered in a suitable time frame, that would mean that I would have a lot more confidence in going down that road. I hear the arguments that Councillor Page gives about development in the countryside, and what Councillor Gare has said as well. But I feel that given LCC Highways have made it clear, very clear in paragraph 4.7, that they have no objections subject to conditions, and the gain of highway improvements, which I personally know will improve certain parts of that road, particularly for even larger vehicles, not just cars going to the tip. I am concerned that we don't have a valid enough reason for refusal, but I will listen carefully to what other members say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Bannister.
Thank you. Yeah, similar to Councillor Graves, I would appreciate some improvements down Moorbarns Lane, as I regularly use the County Council waste site there as well. But the approach to Moorbarns, to any resident at Lutterworth will well know, you have to negotiate narrow and congested roads that Councillor Gare has referenced. And there are, of course, the two schools and all the parking of staff there. And I appreciate the conditions about dropping off and trying to restrict the movements, not to interfere with those drop off and collecting times. But nonetheless, you've got pretty vulnerable people around about those two schools, right at the mouth of the junction of Moorbarns and Woodmarket. But whatever the improvements could be achieved on Moorbarns, there is no scope for improvement on that tight, narrow residential streets around the approach to Moorbarns. And if business development is allowed along Moorbarns in a rural setting, and I firmly believe it really ought to remain agricultural in that area. But if business use is to be encouraged and developed, it will have really quite a negative impact on the road structure approaching Moorbarns and that site, to the detriment of an awful lot of local people. I'm not fully persuaded, therefore, that the mitigation goes far enough, or indeed the mitigation can be achieved. And I think it is an agricultural site. It should be used as an agricultural site. I think to turn it to quite a substantial B8 type of building, which would only encourage further applications for business development in inappropriate areas, just not sustainable in my view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bannister. Has anyone got anything else to say? No. I mean, it's been operating for 2 years without any problems, apparently, according to. You disagree?
I would say, Chair, I mean, having had to reverse down the lane as a lorry reversed towards me only the other day, but because the lorry was coming in the opposite direction, they couldn't get over the bridge. Very skillful driving by the lorry drivers, but I didn't want to be reversing. And people come out of the tip with trailers. I mean, it's a nightmare down there, and I do not think the passing places will completely mitigate it. And I think that the suggested improvements to Woodmarket, I just cannot see how they're going to do that. There isn't room between the buildings, let alone including the pavements, and it's in a conservation area on a blind junction. It's just not going to happen, and it will draw more traffic into the streets of Lutterworth. And there's a big new estate going in just off Woodway Lane, Woodway Lane. So that's going to increase traffic down there as well. Can I propose at this point that we overturn this approval and refuse the recommendation?
Adrian discussed.
Oh, sorry, right.
I was just going to ask, mention a few things and a few sticks as well, obviously.
Yeah.
So if I was just going to ask Councillor if I could say one or two things whilst I was listening to Councillor. I know there's a few speakers. I can just sense, I think there's, the committee's in a bit of a stiff position here, quite difficult. I appreciate, many of us know Moor Barnes Lane, but some very expert local knowledge here in Moor Barnes Lane as well. But we do have to bear in mind that the report is very clear in terms of planning policy. It's paragraph 6.1. I've got the local plan in front of me. Local plan policy GD3, I think it's G. It does allow for the effectively conversion use of buildings, so it does satisfy policy. And in terms of highway safety, yeah, absolutely understand the concerns, but we have not got an objection to Highway Authority. As Mr. Wiggins, I think, referred to when he was speaking, the National Planning Policy Framework, this paragraph 116, you've got to demonstrate there's a severe impact. And whilst I appreciate this on the highway, which would be very difficult to do, notwithstanding local knowledge and doubt about the implementation of improvements, ultimately, for example, they'd probably go through a 278 highway works, but as it stands, the evidence from the experts is it could come forward. So I just wanted to say that it does comply with policy, and it would be very difficult to demonstrate the severe impact that's required if you've got a highway concern.
Thank you. You have something to say, Mark? No? David Atkinson would like to say something.
Thank you very much, Chairman. David Atkinson, Director of Planning. I echo completely all that Adrian has said. Thank you, Chairman. David Atkinson, Director of Planning. I recognise all that Adrian has said and echo it, really. It is a difficult one for the Planning Committee. It's one of, Councillor Graves said, we've got many difficult planning applications coming before the committee in the next sort of cycle or two. But in my director position as advising the committee from where I'm sitting, there aren't any real highway policy grounds to refuse the application. We obviously have no objection from the County Council as the Highway Authority. They've not identified any severe impacts. Not with, as Adrian said, the local knowledge is obviously enormous around this table. But we obviously, when we make decisions on planning applications, we need to be mindful of the evidence and the expert opinion of those consultees, notwithstanding all the local knowledge that we also have and respect. But my advice to the committee would be, in the light of that scenario, would be to grant planning permission. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Can you just say something about B8 and B2? There's some suggestion that they might be putting gigantic sheds on this area.
It's very difficult to hear these microphones.
I was just saying, could we talk about B2 and B8, because you've mentioned B8 and they might be tempted to put big sheds on there. So Mark will probably say something about this.
Yeah, so there was comment from a local resident regarding the potential for the site to be developed as strategic B8, and that this proposal should be limited to solely non-strategic B8. But there's no difference in land use between strategic and non-strategic. It's all B8 land use. In terms of the local plan, we consider strategic to be 9,000 square metres and above. Obviously, looking at this plan that's before you at the moment, you can see that building A is 1,500 square metres and building B is 700, approaching 800 square metres. The combination of those two is nowhere near the 9,000 that we would consider to be strategic B8. The site as it stands as a whole wouldn't exceed 9,000 square metres. So we don't feel it's necessary for a condition restricting it to non-strategic B8 because of the confines of the site itself do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Page. Thank you, Chair. I've read this report and I feel that this is very much based on things like rural economy, sustainability, as I said previously. So I also feel and have to agree with previous speakers that it is over intensification. It's an agricultural site and it should remain an agricultural site. Now, for me, and I can't speak on this because I wasn't privy to that, but I believe the applicant has made approaches previously to the town council for a further intensification. Now, to me, I know I have to just look at the application as it is in front of me, but for me, it will be a potential access. And I have to think of the residents, the quality of life, the circumstances, the safety of school children. And I feel very passionate over this at this moment. And I know the traffic that goes in here. So I will take my chances and second Councillor Gare's refusal and see where we go with that. And then let's see what comes out of the wash at the end, because after all, it's an officer's recommendation. So it's recommended, but it's up to the committee to decide. So I will second the refusal. So Councillor Gare, what were your reasons for refusal?
My reasons for
Can you put your microphone on?
That's great. Put your microphone on.
My reasons for refusal are it will draw more traffic into the area in roads that are inappropriate, and that the mitigation that is suggested in terms of improving Millbarns Lane is not adequate because of the bridge, and that I cannot see in any way how the mitigation for Woodmarket can be put into place. Highways have not got 100% record on their recommendations. We've got ample evidence of that in Lutterworth, where the town council has suggested things. Highways have turned it down, and it's turned out that we were right, but I won't go into that. But they are not
All
right.
right, Councillor Gare.
So my, you know, it's a change of an intensification of land use, which is inappropriate already. And that should, if any development of this nature is to take place, it should go within the industrial areas occupied by Magna Park and the fringes of Magna Park. I used to live on Moorebanks Lane,
thank you.
so I do know what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you. Chairman, may I just add, because I'm the seconder before the legal gentleman comes in, I think what is required is a policy. So if I may add that it is against policy BE1, GD3, and, you know, SSI, I suppose, if that is, you know, a possible policy, because it is not development, sustainable development that enhances the rural economy. And that's BE, rural economy, BE1, rural economy. So it is redevelop existing employment site, commercialised, but it is also well located in rural centres and selected rural villages. Well, that isn't well located. Access to it is through a conservation area. It is not sustainable development. It is simply storage of lorries, and it does not deliver local employment opportunities that supports and diversifies the rural economy or enables the expansion of business enterprises. So that is my main concern. And then, of course, GD3 as well.
Okay, thank you. Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. First point is there's been a lot of reference to intensification of use and to different things. Members obviously have to consider the planning application that is in front of them and nothing else. So just to make that point. More broadly, I would be very surprised if the local planning authority were able to sustain a refusal on this site on appeal, given the position that the local highway authority have set out. So I think it would be very difficult and members have to take the decision cognizant of that advice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Graves, you wanted to say something?
Yes, after I finished speaking, a few minutes after that, I did recall one journey that I made down that road, and it was during school hours, and I recalled it was actually very difficult to get past all of the parked cars. The cars, I think, were parked on both sides of the road. As the debate has gone on, and I recalled that incident, I have become less sympathetic than I started off with to this application. I was minded to be somewhat supportive based on what appeared to be some reasonable highway improvements, but actually I've been convinced they're not good enough. I think the incidents of all of the school vehicles, the school children, the inappropriate nature of the bridge. I even suspect that highways could be challenged, that my gut feeling is they might have got this a little bit wrong. I challenged highways once on something outside of Broughton Astley, and they rapidly withdrew it and brought it back again with extra traffic lights. I know it's what we've got to have in front of us, but I'm just saying that they have been shown to be wrong in the past. I started off with some sort of support to this, but I actually think that the mitigation is not good enough, and I'm going to support a refusal of this.
Thank you. I think we'll move to the vote now. So it's been moved and seconded for refusal. Adrian, have you got some reasons for it?
Yes, if I may, Chairman. I mean, I was just looking at BE1, for example. I don't really think it's applicable. I can't see where that fits into what's been discussed. But I accept the sentiment and what Councillor Gare said. What I noted down was the proposal, and it's a use now, so we're not saying it will. I don't think you'd have to say the use is there. So the proposal draws more traffic on inappropriate roads, and the mitigation proposed is inadequate. Moorbarns Lane, the mitigation proposed is inadequate for Wood Market, impractical to put in place. The policy link here, I think, and then you would conclude policy GD8L talks about safe access. So as Councillor Page says, you do need to refer to policy GD8 actually. Talks about design and development. GD8 is the only policy we've got, I think, that talks about safe access. So you would say, and safe access can't be provided. So just in good faith, I would say it's really weak, but that's the policy. GD3, for example, and that's in the report. GD3 G basically allows conversion of reuse buildings. So this does comply with GD3. You just simply can't make a case it doesn't, I'm afraid, with respect. So I agree with everything Alex has said, that there's not a case, but to put a policy in place, I say it would be what I read out. It draws more traffic, I think, on inappropriate roads, and the mitigation is adequate, and for Wood Market, impractical to put in place. Safe access is not provided, and therefore the policy GD8 Cal is contravened. I can't recommend that, but that's the words I would put in place.
Can we mention the conservation area, because that's very, very important?
So in terms of the conservation area, simply there's no evidence that the fact that the wood markets and the conservation area, there's no evidence there's any harm. There's legal tests. I think it's paragraph 130 something we have in front of us in the NPPF. You talk about less than substantial harm. The fact that there's traffic, and I think you've heard the traffic generation given to what's already taking place. You simply can't evidence with respect that that will have an impact on the conservation area. So I wouldn't recommend adding that.
The point I was making there is that there isn't the space to put in the necessary improvements without impinging on some of the buildings.
Yes.
Which are part of the conservation area.
And wouldn't
Proof of
come into
We haven't got any
operation?
proof of that. We've only
Well,
got
I mean,
what you're saying, but
well,
I mean,
I've only got nobody
Exactly.
in this room has cycled across from Hill Drive to Baker Street. And
we have to go with what we've got in the report, really, haven't we?
it's completely impractical to widen that road to take heavy lorries coming
The
in.
highways have looked at the map. And
The highways have looked at the map. Well, I don't need to get cross about this.
Chairman, if I may come in one more time, IN2.
Councillor
Look
Payne,
at
David
IN2.
Atkinson would like to say
I
something.
completely understand and get where the committee are with this, and there's a lot of local knowledge and a lot of local passion, and a lot of people have heard me say this before. But obviously, it's a matter for members, as Councillor Page has said. Officers advise and members decide. But I think this is one that it would be difficult, extremely difficult, I would say, and that's a very rare thing to say at planning committee, to defend a refusal on this application. The emotion, I can feel the emotion in the room, it's crackling in the room, but that is unfortunately not the way that the planning committee ought to be. My humble opinion as the director, and I'm choosing my words as carefully as I can, address this matter. It needs to make that decision based on the evidence before it, I'm afraid. And I appreciate feeling and local knowledge, but I'll leave it there, Chairman. We've said it, and I think that it'd be very difficult to defend an appeal on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Chairman.
I've listened very carefully to everybody's comments, and I understand that this is a tricky one. I can see where the applicants are coming from with it, but looking at it on the map, I feel that these roads, even though they're being used daily by all sorts of transport and traffic and vehicles, they weren't actually designed for the HGVs and even the tractors. You say that they're agricultural. Tractors are not tractors how we remember them to be. They're 3 times the size of what they were. And I feel that when you're talking about a conservation area, I understand that you're saying that not a lot can be said here, but large HGVs are restricted in conservation areas because they do have a potential damage to the roads, the buildings, and noise pollution. They have a negative impact on the area's character. And I feel that somewhere within the policies, there's got to be accountability for that. And I don't know what that policy is. Thank you.
Councillor Graves.
I'd just like to note that on Google Street View, Wood Market has a big, I don't know what it is, 15, 20 ton highways maintenance vehicle driving down the road next to the camera, and it demonstrates that you can't get 2 of them next to each other. I just note that as a bit of an anecdotal point. Parts of that road are wide enough for 2 cars, I've driven down it frequently, to easily pass each other. But then there are other parts of that road where 2 cars get uncomfortable about passing each other. I think that if this council was going to select a site to put B3, B8, whatever, it would not choose the far end of the publicly accessible Moorbarns Lane. The point I forgot to mention earlier was that there's not many parts of the district where there's a restriction like a bridge where you can only get 1 vehicle over at one time. There really aren't that many that I can recall. The other one's in Kibworth with the silly set of traffic lights over the railway bridge. I personally strongly think that we're entering an age now, as Councillor Moder was alluding to, where we're going to start significantly disagreeing with Highways' lack of severe concern and quite frankly, bring it on. I am not happy that Highways have just proposed the simple mitigation. At some point, someone's going to have to widen the whole of Moorbarns Lane. And until they do, I think this council is going to do refusal after refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moder?
So, sorry, Chair, thank you, Councillor Graves. My question to the planning officer would be, would HGVs be a detrimental, would they be detrimental to the character of a conservation area due to those things that I listed, for example, noise, vibration, physical damage to the narrow roads, safety concerns for pedestrians and other road users? Is that a possible
In terms of planning and what you describe,
policy?
what you describe, for example, is what goes through Lutterworth Town Centre Conservation Area. Okay. But unfortunately, there's no planning policy that we've got. Ultimately, damage to buildings, etc. People have got to be responsible for that if they like themselves. It's not the testing conservation areas, and NPPF doesn't talk about those. A little bit intangible, but they are physical, but it doesn't come from the development. So, but if I may come back on, because Councillor Page did refer to IN2, and I think Councillor Page has a point there. IN2 2A is probably a road safety policy. So if I can, I'll just sum up again, and I would start by saying the proposal satisfies the local plan policy GD3, and it doesn't demonstrate a severe highway impact. So it's very, very difficult. But respecting what Councillor Gare has said, I'll just pick up on what Councillor Page said, just repeat, I think, what Councillor Gare was saying. The proposal draws more traffic on inappropriate roads, and the mitigation is inadequate and for Woodmarket impractical to deliver. The development therefore adversely affects, the development does not have safe access and is contrary to local plan policies GD8 L, I think it is, and IN2 2A. Thank you.
Last one, then we move to the vote.
Comment. Can I say that should we refuse this application and it goes to appeal, that the inspector visits the junction at Woodmarket?
They always do. Okay, right, we've had a proposer and a seconder to refuse this application for the reasons that Adrian's given. Can we go to the vote now, and Sarah will?
So again, I'll conduct a recorded vote, and you're voting for, against, or abstaining to refuse the proposal. Councillor Bannister.
I vote for refusal.
Councillor Burrell.
Against refusal.
Councillor Elliott.
For refusal.
Councillor Gare.
For refusal.
Councillor Graves.
For the refusal.
Councillor James.
Against refusal.
Councillor Moder. Councillor Mrs Page.
For refusal.
Councillor Wellband.
For refusal.
And Councillor Worrell.
Against refusal.
So we have 7 for the refusal and 3 against refusal. So the application is refused.
Okay, so that application has been refused. Thank you, everybody. That concludes the applications for tonight, and there is no urgent business. So I'll close the meeting at 7:56. Thank you, everybody.